This is the second generation Kohler Deerfield urinal, introduced around 1964 to 65 and would be made up until the late 2010s. So Kohler went with an interesting route with their second generation Deerfield. It basically took their body of the second generation Kohler Dexter urinal and make it a P-trap washout urinal with a Bardon cover. And that's about it. It's also super hollow too, as you can tell. Most people don't really find P-trap washout urinals very interesting, but this has got to be one of the most boring ones out there. So let's take a look at it and see what it has to offer. So the overall design of this urinal is basically the same as the second generation or third generation Kohler Dexter urinal, so not much needs to be said there, except it's a lot more hollow inside and it has a Bardon cover. And that's about it. Let's have a look at a flush. Yeah, not very interesting. Let's have a look at ball rinse. Now what's interesting is there's actually rim jets all around the bowl, which is neat. I say for the most part the ball rinse is decent, but they are a little bit spaced out. I wish they were spaced in a little bit more and had more abundance of rim jets, but for the most part it's pretty decent. Functionality wise, for the most part, most P-trap washout urinals like this one are just okay. And this will be a very common theme for other P-trap washout urinals. I definitely think the coverage of extra piping and longer piping definitely helps these things out a lot better compared to most washdown urinals that are not exposed trap. Mostly because they have a little bit more space. Although it does trade in a little bit more of a visual factor, considering that piping like this is kind of an eyesore sometimes. But this is like a rare example of it, but most of the time it doesn't look most pleasing in most restrooms. It's weird to look at. And that is the second generation Kohler Deerfield urinal. Obviously probably one of the more boring ones out there, but it definitely is still kind of interesting in its own unique way. It's just kind of stale in comparison to some other urinals, though most P-trap washout urinals are going to be kind of boring, to be fair. But let's put this urinal into the grading scale. Let's grade it. The overall design of the second generation Deerfield is kind of plain. It has the same body style as the second or third generation Kohler Dexter, but it's hollowed out and has a metal strainer on the inside. It's so boring. It's getting a 5. The flush really isn't anything to write home about. It's a standard washout flush. I was expecting it to be a little bit more interesting considering it does have rim jets on the sides, but it really doesn't add anything to the flush, which is very strange. The flush gets a 5. The ball rinse is actually fairly decent, and I was very surprised with this. While it does have an abundance of rim jets, which is a nice touch, I originally thought that the ball rinse wouldn't be as good considering all the empty space that it has to work with. But honestly, it works a lot better than I expected. Could it be better in some areas? Yes, but it's definitely a lot better than I expected, so I'm giving it a 7. Functionality for the most part is okay. This thing actually does have a decent water area to work with, so that way it doesn't overflow as fast, but my biggest problem is the metal strainer. And this ends up being a double-edged sword. For one thing, it does protect things from falling into the piping, which is a nice touch, but it also reduces water flow. If you remove it, well, it drains a lot more faster, but now you risk stuff getting stuck into the piping and causing some plumbing issues. So it's a giant double-edged sword, and honestly, I definitely think they could have designed the Deerfield to be a little bit different and not just a P-trap Bardon. It definitely is different, but it really isn't the best idea if you think about it. For the functionality, I give it a 6. Now let's talk about the overall value of this urinal. Outside of the newer Mansfield Adam Urinals, the second generation Kohler Deerfield is probably the stalest urinal we've reviewed so far for P-trap washouts, which is kind of ironic considering it's probably the most different out of all of them, having a metal strainer instead of a hold strainer. While it definitely is different, I can kind of see why most companies stayed away from the metal strainers for P-trap washouts. It does reduce the water flow, but it does offer protection. Without it, it does drain faster, but it can also provide some future problems with plumbing. There are some aspects of the Deerfield that does surprise me, like its decent ball rinse and decent water area, but outside of that, it's a pretty simplistic urinal. Probably the most boring out of all the P-trap washouts outside of newer Mansfield Adam Urinal. The best thing I could say about this urinal is that it gets the job done, which I guess at the end of the day is all that matters. But outside of the design, it's just so boring. Overall though, it's definitely better than I'm making it out to be, but at most it's getting a 6. The final score of the second generation Kohler Deerfield urinal is a 29 out of 50, which translates to a 58 out of 100. While this urinal is pretty boring, there are some aspects that do surprise me about this urinal. Overall though, while it is the most different, it definitely is the most stale.